So what can we learn about negotiation from watching a fake psychic try to buy a car? Hi, I'm Bob Bordone. I'm a senior fellow at Harvard Law School and the founder and former director of Harvard's Negotiation and Mediation Clinical Program. I'm also the founder and a principal at the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. Today, we're going to dive into that by looking at a clip from the TV show Psych.
There it is.
Well, she's been sitting in some old lady's backyard for dang near 30 years.
You got the keys? Let's take a look inside.
Okay, let's just start there. I mean, this guy is supposedly a used car salesman. Why would you say that the car was sitting in a backyard for 30 years? Is a mystery to me.
What?
If you're trying to sell something, you want to frame it in a positive way. Now, I guess maybe there is something positive here if you're saying it hasn't been driven in the 30 years, so even though it's ancient, it actually is in pretty good condition. But the tone here is completely wrong. It's kind of like, this is a piece of crap that nobody would want.
No, thank you.
So if you are trying to influence someone in a negotiation, you need to try to frame the thing you're selling in some positive way. Truthful, you don't want to say, look at this brand new, amazing, high-functioning car. But you might say something like, one of the great things about this car is that it actually hasn't been used in 30 years because it was owned by an old lady. So to the degree you're looking for a classic car that's in great condition, this one is for you.
Keys, let's take a look inside.
Make me an offer and it's yours.
You gotta be kidding.
So let's just stop there. Negotiation lesson number 2. If you're going to invite an offer, you end by saying, make me an offer. You don't add, and it's yours. Because what you've essentially signaled is, I'm ready to give this away, right? And in negotiation, the thing you want to avoid doing is sharing what your bottom line is. And at some level, the car salesperson has essentially said, I'm prepared to sell this for whatever you're willing to pay.
Gotta be kidding.
Just give us a second here. All right, how much money do we have between us?
What? I think I got about 50 bucks.
Okay.
I got about 400 between my wallet and my sock.
All right, let's just pause there. So a key attribute of a good negotiator is good preparation. And part of good preparation means knowing what resources you have available and knowing how much you might be willing to pay for something. Here are things that good negotiators don't do by way of preparation. They don't do that right in front of the person with whom they're negotiating while they are negotiating. Literally, this car salesperson is watching them count up money. Every dollar that car salesperson sees is a dollar that he thinks is going in his pocket. Good negotiators prepare in advance, and when they're preparing, they are thinking about what resources do I have available, for sure. They're also, though, thinking about what is this thing actually worth? And the way you might determine that is by looking toward objective criteria. So, for buying a used car, you might go to Kelly's Blue Book. You might look at other car dealerships and see what kinds of similar cars they have on their lot and what price they're asking for. You might look in the newspaper or go to Carvana.com. But what you don't do is, in front of the person with whom you're negotiating, take stock of your resources, literally talking about the exact amount of resources you have.
It's my just-in-case money.
All right, add in what I have, and we've got about 450.
All right, let me go talk to him.
You stand down, Popeye Doyle. I'll handle this.
So we could do a whole video on this moment, because in negotiation, oftentimes, you do need to select someone in a team negotiation who will serve as your primary spokesperson. And how that happens really matters. Oftentimes, what we see happening in real life is kind of exactly what we see happening here, meaning someone just takes an alpha role and says, I got this.
Don't worry. I got it.
Sometimes they do that because they're a dominant personality. Sometimes they do that because they're kind of arrogant. Lots of times they do it because they're just the boss or they're the one who's presumed to do it. And all of those are really bad reasons to select someone to be your spokesperson. So if you're thinking about, I'm in a team and one of us needs to negotiate, there are some questions that you should think about in deciding who. For example, who has skills in this? Who might actually have some information about it? Who maybe has a relationship with the other side or is seen as trustworthy or creative? Who can be credible in that negotiation across the table with the other side? Now, you might be thinking this is very simple and obvious, but I want to tell you, even very sophisticated negotiators often miss this important point. Years ago, under the Obama administration, when there was an attempt to restart Israeli and Palestinian negotiations, the quartet, the set of countries that were leading those negotiations, had to appoint someone to be the chief envoy in those negotiations. They ended up picking former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. Now, from a Western perspective, at least some of you are probably thinking, he seems pretty credible. He's charismatic, he's smart, he's well respected. But as someone who teaches negotiation, as soon as I heard that, I thought, this negotiation is over. And the reason why is it was very clear to me that that choice of a negotiator had no credibility with one of the two sides with whom he would be working, specifically the Palestinians. And the reason why was when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, his country actually executed a war against Saddam Hussein and Iraq, one of the few leaders who strongly supported the Palestinian cause. So this is just a micro clip here, but really good negotiators, when they're appointing someone to do the negotiation, think critically about, is this the right person for this negotiation? Now, let's see if this is the right person for this particular car negotiation.
Got about $450 here. Now, how much is this going to cost me?
$450.
Done. He's good.
Nice going, Sean. That was all of our money.
That's what happens when you're sitting in the one guy who's never bought a car before.
Exactly enough.
All right, look at it this way, Gus. Isn't a car. It's a time machine.
Okay, I think that example just proved my point. If you don't have experience negotiating, maybe you shouldn't be the person actually negotiating. When you are thinking about making an offer, what should guide you is relevant market criteria based on precedent. So that means really good preparation. In this case, what I might have done is done some research on the Kelly's Blue Book, understood what the mileage and condition of the car was, and then throw out a number that can be explained by reference to that criteria. Then I would actually avoid a haggle, meaning that if the other side if the salesperson, for example, just threw out some random high number so that we have a bargaining range, I would actually just say, how did you arrive at that number? And if they can't back it up based on some kind of relevant criteria, then I'm unlikely to move off of my mark. And this is a very different way of thinking about setting a price point. I am open to moving if you can back up your numbers. But what I'm trying to really do here is avoid a haggle where one side anchors low and the other side anchors high, and then we kind of work our way toward the middle. A last lesson I want to point out here, and it's not directly in this clip, but I think you could extrapolate quite easily from it. As soon as the salesperson hears $450, he says, well, that's how much? $450. What am I extrapolating? Many times in a negotiation, let's say it's a salary negotiation, and I'll hear an employer say, what is your preferred salary range? And the other person might say something like, well, between $65,000 and $80,000. Well, as soon as you said that, you know where the employer is resting? At 65.
minimum.
When you give a range, when you put a number out like that, the person is going to claim that value immediately. And so in negotiation, before I throw out a number, I always want to understand what is fair, what are the criteria, what are norms we can look to, not just how much are you willing to work for, or how much do you have in your pocket, or how much are you willing to give me. None of those have any resonance, and as soon as I hear that, that's automatically claimed. So have you ever been in a negotiation where you're asked for a price and you're kind of a little bit dumbfounded because you haven't prepared and you don't really know and you just blurt out a number and then regret it? Tell me those stories in the comments below. And if you want to make sure that you avoid those situations going forward, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like the video, and hit the notifications button so you never miss more valuable information. I'm Bob Bordone with the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, it's not difficult to keep watching. Click, click.